I love caramel apples. They're delicious, but honestly, they're awkward to eat. I mean, it's an apple on a stick. Today, I'm gonna show you a delicious, easy way to make caramel apples that's gonna be super fun for parties, and you can make them at home. There's so many fun things happening in the fall, like tailgating and Halloween parties. So I thought it would be fun to take one of my favorite recipes from this time of year and turn it into an appetizer of sorts. I'm calling these caramel apple pops. The recipe can be found in the description below. The first thing we want to do is get our apples ready. So what we did with these is we boiled them in hot water for about 5 seconds. Apples from the store normally come with wax on the outside, and that wax actually repels caramel. And I want to make this as easy as possible on you at home. So we went ahead and boiled that wax off and then took a dry cloth and just rubbed them really good after we took them out of the hot water. That way they're ready to go and they're ready to be dipped. And one of my favorite ways to cut apples actually is to cut around the core. It makes it easier. So almost like you're leaving a little square in the center. You could use an apple core, but I just prefer this method. To me, it's a little easier. So I'm gonna cut these into hearty slices, and then I'm gonna put lemon juice on top. The reason why I'm doing lemon juice is so I can prevent these from turning brown, because the last thing I wanna do is present these at a party and they're brown and they look janky. Now here's the trick. We wanna have lemon juice on these. It's gonna give it a nice little tangy flavor, but when we go to dip them in the caramel, I wanna make sure all the moisture is off of the slices so the caramel will stick. If we were just to make the caramel and dip a wet apple into it, it's not really gonna stick. You want them to be as dry as possible when we go to dip them in the caramel. So we have those sitting. We're gonna let those soak a little bit in the lemon juice, make sure they get really good and protected from browning, and we're gonna start our caramel. So what we have is 8 ounces of soft caramels. We're gonna put those in our pot, and I'm going to add 1.5 tablespoons of heavy whipping cream. And we're gonna get our heat going. You're gonna want it to be on about medium-low, because if you crank it up to high and you start boiling the caramel, it's gonna burn and it's gonna be a hot mess disaster. And while our caramel is melting, we are gonna use treat sticks. You can find them at your local craft store. You can buy them, I'm sure, online. Hot tip to make this even easier to stick our treat sticks into our apples is you're gonna trim a little bit off the bottom of your apple, just to make sure it's flat. It will be easily inserted. Great, so super cute. There's our first one. So again, while our caramel is melting, we're gonna build all of our pops. So when I was a kid, I loved Halloween in one way because I loved getting dressed up as a princess. So any excuse to put on like a tiara and a frilly dress and frolic around like I was the cat's pajamas. My favorite Halloween costume was when I dressed up like Cinderella. That was me. However, the boys in my neighborhood would jump out from the bushes and scare you as you're trick-or-treating. So I got to the point where I could barely go out. I would cry before trying to leave the house because I was so scared of these neighborhood boys. But I did love candy, so I would eventually overcome my fears and go trick-or-treating. Okay, this caramel is melting. It's looking good. So you wanna make sure your caramel is bubbling a little bit, but you don't want it to get really, really hot, because then it will burn. And you will know that it's burning because you'll get these little like dark brown pieces in the bottom. I don't know why I'm pinching. But yeah, you don't want dark brown pieces. You want it to look really smooth and creamy. So I'm gonna take this off because I don't want it to burn. I'm gonna let it cool down for a little bit, because when you're building your caramel apple pops, you don't want the caramel to be really hot because it won't stick to your caramel apples. So we wanna let this cool for a few minutes just so it gets really thick, and then we'll bring it back out and we will dip our apples. So we have our apple pops all set up, ready to go. Again, I made sure and took as much of the moisture out of these as I could with a paper towel. I just really dried them off really good to make sure the caramel can stick to the apple pops. And also, when we dip these, we're really trying to get the caramel to stick to the skin. You know, when you see a big caramel apple, the caramel is all around on the skin because that's a good conduit for it. But the flesh part is a little more challenging, so we're really gonna focus on getting the caramel on the skin. And this caramel has cooled for a couple minutes, so we are ready to dip these apples. So when I dip, you dip, we all dip. I was told not to sing that for copyright reasons. All right, let's start dipping these. Pop number 1 done. I'm gonna put it down and I'm gonna put our topping on it. I'll do this one with sprinkles. And it's much easier to sprinkle your toppings on top instead of you taking the pop and just dipping it in there. So pop number 2. Just dipping it in there, getting it really good on the skin. Gorgeous. And then I'm gonna do some nuts on this one. We're just gonna keep on dipping. I still wanna see a little bit of the green skin. So when I'm dipping these, I'm not gonna dip the entire apple. You're just getting a hint. Pretzel this one up. I love the pretzel topping. It's kind of like salted caramel. It's delish. And again, we're just doing 1 apple here. You can do as many apples as you want. This makes a good amount of caramel, so I mean, Dip to your heart's content. Okay, so we have some with sprinkles, some with pretzels, some with Reese's Pieces, some with nuts, but you could do whatever toppings you want, chocolate chips, you can even add a chocolate drizzle if you like, but these are ready to go. I'm gonna let them sit in the fridge for about 10 to 15 minutes just to get them set really nice and well, and then we're gonna bring them out to serve. So I have some of our caramel apple pops already made in dips, but I wanted to set up an apple dipping station for when I have my friends over to enjoy these caramel apples. And I love food that's interactive. I mean, who doesn't love interactive party food? And I wanted to set it up too so that my guests can make their apple pops and dip them in the caramel. And I also had in mind, like, how can I make this look fall and rustic and feel like a Halloween party or a fall party? So I have this burlap table runner, this wooden cutting board. It just feels a lot like fall. And also when I'm thinking about my apple station, I was thinking about like, what do people enjoy on caramel apples? I personally love chocolate, so I have some Reese's Pieces. Peanut butter is a great combo, so chocolate and peanut butter is perfect. Some people like salty, so we have some nuts and some chopped up pretzels, or you could do like fun sprinkles or maybe even a little like orange and purple sanding sugar, something fun like that. I am super excited about fall. I feel like this whole setup is a perfect way to welcome in fall. Before I get to dipping, I want to capture this setup. So cute. These are delicious, but I want to see how you style your caramel apple pops. Tag @PopKitchen on Instagram or comment below. I want to know what you want to see me style next.